I'm Eric Kranz. I'm from the Albany Visualization and Informatics Laboratory at the University at Albany. We are a software planning laboratory located inside of the Geography and Planning Department at the University at Albany, headed by our esteemed director, Catherine T. Lawson, who is on this call here today as well. And Dr. Lawson, feel free to jump in if you want to offer anything as well while we go through today's meeting. To give you all some background on the Fusion data product that I'm sharing here today, we started working on this with a partnership with the Division of Homeland Security of New York State. In 2018, we helped New York State deliver what was at the time was the first web-based statewide hazard mitigation plan. And as part of that process, they wanted to collect and organize into a database, a web-based database of a variety of different data sets so that they could deploy it in the local hazard mitigation planning program across the state. There are 60-ish hazard mitigation plans that are on a rolling basis occurring in the state of New York, and they saw it as an opportunity to organize around providing, processing and providing data to those planning efforts. This then was picked up as part of the CTP project, the Cooperating Technical Partners program from FEMA, to try to make this a national product and to provide some guidance on use of this data for the nation. And so I'm going to describe a little bit what the product that we've ended up creating here is, and then take you through a tour of how we are displaying that data, trying to make it as useful as possible for you to potentially use this in your own planning efforts across the country. So I'm going to share screen and give a presentation via the website that I shared. Let's see if this is going to bring me there. Beautiful. Again, feel free to raise hands, ask questions in the chat. Additionally, the other thing I'd note here too is if you have any interest in being a part of ongoing emails and you weren't included in the initial invite blast for this presentation, feel free to drop your email into the chat as well for us so that we can keep you in the loop going forward. This website is very easy to find. It's hazarddata.org. And what we are showcasing here are a couple of different data sets. But most importantly is the Fusion data set, what we're calling the Fusion data set, the framework for unifying sources of information on natural disasters. What we ran into some problems with utilizing the NCEI data product, which we were originally using to back the New York State Hazard Mitigation Plan I mentioned earlier, and we decided that we thought it would make a lot of sense to map that data product to the open FEMA federally declared disaster data sets that are in existence, and do some other post-processing to make it available so that folks can have the information about declared disasters as part of the data product that you get from NCEI. We also took the NCEI data product as well and mapped the hazard types across to the NRI hazard types. And all of this information about the build out of the data, sorry, it's in the documentation page here under the About. You can find everything here about the methodology, how we arrived at what we did, and you can see here in our fiscal year report for the CTP, we have outlined the entire methodology, including the mappings, right? And so one thing to note here is that a FEMA disaster typically encapsulates, it can encapsulate many different episodes from the NCEI storm events data. which can encapsulate multiple events. And in some cases, those events may have different hazard names, right? So an event might be the NCI data is a meteorological data product. So in many cases, what we're talking about here inside of an episode will often be an event that has to do with a specific meteorological type of occurrence here, so flooding or hurricane or wind. But as you move up through the system here out to the FEMA disaster, it might all fall under the word hurricane, where it's under Hurricane Irene. And so this is a complicated mapping that what we arrived at in here, and when you download our data product, we provide a primary hazard type and a secondary hazard type so that we continue to maintain these data points throughout. So any event is at the event level. It's going to have the information from the NCI data about, if it's flood, for instance, and also the disaster declaration type. If it is a disaster, it'll also include that as well. So this is just something to keep note of as we move through. And
Eric, I just want to jump in real quick and
Yeah, sure.
add, I think, this is one of the big advantages of this data set is that it takes a number of open FEMA data sets and adds the context of assessed damage of those data sets back in with the storm events data. One of the real reasons that this project got started off was when we were working with New York and looking at the storm events data, it really, really was underreporting the amount of loss from Hurricane Sandy, and still does to this day. And so you get a lot richer picture of the actual historical data loss in this data set than if you were to just use the values from the NCI storm events data, which is, I think, one of the big advantages of this data set.
Great, thank you for that, Alex. And Alex is the lead programmer and a data scientist behind this project from Avail here. And Alex, feel free to continue to do what you just did. Interrupt me whenever you feel like you have additional color commentary to add. As I mentioned earlier, we are mapping to the National Risk Index hazard types across from the NCEI event types. And so we've provided this, again, it's in the about documentation. You can see how we map these across here. And again, these event types can be more granular than what we have on the NRI hazard type. In some cases, there can be multiple types of NCI events mapped across to those NRI types. We felt like the NRI did a great job of consolidating into a very strong list of natural hazards. They consulted a variety of experts in their process to arrive at that list, and we think that it was a worthwhile effort on our part to utilize that as part of the structure for this data product. And so again, I encourage you, if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the data product here, you can feel free to read through here. There's a lot of information that we've provided here in the documentation that's available for understanding exactly what the data product is. And Alex, do you have anything else to add before I move on to taking people for a tour of how to use it or how we are showing it?
No, let's go.
Great, excellent. So I'm going to take you through this website here to introduce you to a couple of different ways in which we're presenting this data for use in mitigation planning or in any other type of planning efforts you might have, or research or any of that kind of stuff. The first starting point here is, we have this landing page that we're using as an index page to drive you in a couple of different locations. If you want to understand what's the worst disaster in the history of the United States, let's say, or just some of the worst disasters in general, top 10 list, etc., you can start here. If you want to understand more about what counties and states have been hit, we sort of give you a couple of different starting points here, searching for a specific disaster, or we even provide an analysis of Hurricane Sandy, as Alex mentioned. This data product provides a little bit more insight into Hurricane Sandy, and so we provide a little bit of an overview on that specific event. And we also have some links here at the bottom for to some of the pages that describe what you're about to get yourself involved in. If you're interested in utilizing the Fusion in your planning efforts, we provide some of the information you might need, including downloading the data and some examples for how we have been using this in New York State and how we envision you might want to use this in your locations as well. And so I'm going to just take you through a couple different pages, right? We have a listed here. We have the national analysis of geographic locations. We have a national analysis by disaster, national analysis by hazard type. And we also have these state analysis, county analysis, and disaster analysis pages, all of which are located across the top navigation panel here. And so we can drop into, for instance, this national. I'll load into the national analysis page here. You'll see we have a landing that shows you across the country. This is the data across time. So this is all of the Fusion data. We go back to 1996, which is when the NCEI consolidated into a format that is continuing to be used today. So this is our data product covers 1996 through 2024. And the 2024 data may continue to be updated as we move into 2025. It's a rolling data product. So we're currently updating this annually. And when we do this, you may see some changes back through time. So we have this graph here that shows you just exactly how much damage we have over time in this data set, in the Fusion data set. And we have a table here that takes the same information back through for you to look at, your Fusion property damage. We have crop damage, property damage, crop damage, and population damage. We're utilizing the population damage methodology that NRI utilizes, which is a multiplier for deaths and a multiplier for injuries to arrive at a dollar value that is also included in the total Fusion damage data, the total Fusion loss numbers. We provide these maps here that you can these are a little bit more playable than the one up at the top here. This one is a fixed map, but as you come down here, you could utilize this map to zoom in on any location of interest that you have. We have Hawaii and Alaska as well. And a variety, again, just helping you understand where else you could look to learn more about this. And slow me down if I'm moving too fast. There's a lot here to show. So one of the ways to hash this data out is by geographic location. And so we can look at historic loss by state, which is one possible way of looking at this. All of these tables are available for download too. So this little download symbol here signifies, if you click this, it'll export as a CSV for you. So any one of the tables that you're seeing throughout the site is exportable that way. You could filter this by state if you're interested. Disaster loss by state, segmented by program. So this is now a visualization that shows a little bit more about the relationship to the FEMA declaration data that comes from OpenFEMA. So we have information available on individual and households. We have NFIP loss, public assistance loss, SBA loss, and USDA crop loss, all located here as well. So you can access that kind of information about disasters. And so we can provide, losses by state segmented by those programs if you're interested here. Again, downloadable. Disaster losses by county segmented by program. So, we can see where some of the worst hit counties dating back to 1996 are. And we have some additional visualizations here that you can look through at your own leisure. We also have a national hazard analysis page. This is very similar to the last page, except instead of organizing by state, we are organizing here by the hazard types. So these are, again, the NRI hazard types, and you're seeing those listed out here with the variety of losses associated with them. So you see most of this is hurricane. One of the things to note here is that this this table is showing you the relationship between primary and secondary hazard. As I mentioned earlier, the primary hazard is when we are looking at FEMA disaster declarations, the primary is always going to be the FEMA disaster declaration, and the secondary will be what the NCEI event associated with that disaster declaration is. So we can see that there is some additional secondary. This is categorized by secondary hazard, and you see that this is all it's all primarily hurricane, but it includes flooding and wind. As we go through here, you'll see we have this, obviously this is a by hazard table that breaks out what you just saw above. And we can see stats by hazard type if you're interested in this method. So there's just a bunch of different ways that this is broken out by month, etc. And hazard damage by state. So this is breaking it out, by hazard by state, and all of this stuff is more available as we get down into the and I'll show you on the state and county pages if you're interested in seeing all of this stuff there as well. So you can just export for your specific geographic location. And we also have this national disaster analysis page, which takes that open FEMA data and provides it for each of the declared disasters. And so you're seeing here, some high level statistics about what are the worst disasters over time inside of this Fusion data set here.
It's worth noting here, right, that we're using this by FEMA disaster declaration number. So that always splits up disasters by state. So, any particular disaster like Sandy or Harvey or Irene will have one row for each state that the disaster was declared in.
Right. Thank you. And so we also, as I mentioned earlier, we provide this analysis here of Hurricane Sandy, just for taking a look at how specifically what Alex just mentioned here. You can see that there's a number of different disaster declaration numbers associated with the different states that have different damage amounts that are all listed there. And we do a little planning exercise here where we sort of organize this entire thing into a bit of a story that that tells a little bit more about each of the items here that you of interest, sort of taking the data and telling a story with it. And so we also, as I mentioned earlier, we have these specific mitigation planning products, right? So what we're trying to help folks utilize this in their state and local mitigation planning efforts. And also, if you're interested in specific information about a specific disaster, we can help you get to that too, and we'll take a look at that shortly. So at the state level, well, that didn't lead me to the right place. There we go. I'll have to check that out. This page will load momentarily. Let's see if we can load that again. Loaded it for New York here. I'm getting a little bug here. Not loading, huh? Oh, there we go. Just takes an extra second. So folks, just FYI, you saw that take a few extra minutes here for that to load. So just be patient when you filter here. At the top of the page, you notice the search for this is by two-letter abbreviation here. So what we're looking at here is just as many different ways as we could think to hash out this data for the state level that you might want to use in your mitigation planning. As I said, many of these are the types of tables and visualizations that we utilize in the New York State Hazard Mitigation Plan. So you can see here total loss by hazard type, by disaster status. So whether it's a disaster or it's declared or not declared. So we have some of that information here. Again, this is all downloadable. We have stats by hazard type. So are you interested in understanding how many are declared versus non-declared, et cetera, for the state? Statewide hazard events by year, by county, and so on and so forth. So you could export these things for use in your planning efforts. We also have the county page, which does roughly exactly the same thing as the page that we just showcased. There's a couple of differences in terms of the visualizations. Like we can't have there's the tables that breaks it out by county, for instance, is not located on the county page.
Eric, this isn't loading yet. You wanna set a county and then it'll start to load.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So that's the thing we'll take a look at.
Let's try Houston County for fun. Great. So Houston County, Alabama. And we're looking at, just basically the number of events, et cetera, through here. And again, this is specifically designed for use in county planning. And as you can see down here, we also do provide the FEMA disaster assistance information by declared disaster by program. So again, SBA, individual assistance, NFIP, and then we're calling non-declared disasters anything that it's from the NCEI that's not included in a federally declared disaster. So these have the event ID numbers from the NCEI data set. And as I mentioned, we have a page where you can filter by disaster. So we could take a look at, let's take a look at 4420 is a good one we play around with a lot. So this is severe winter storm, straight line winds and flooding, 4420, which is the FEMA incident type in their data is it's riverine flooding. And as we look through here, you can see total loss by program. We have all the stats about the individual and household assistance, the public assistance, SBA, et cetera, all located in here as well. By county, by program, which you can download. FEMA funding by program and county as well. And all sorts of other ways that you can break this all out into different by program, et cetera. And so we also provide this example information, right? So what we're doing here is just kind of giving you an idea of how to utilize this in your workflow. So if we go to let's try a different county. We'll try one of the ones that's right here, Bibb County, for fun. There we go, Bibb County, Alabama. And we're seeing, basically this is the county page that we showed just a few seconds ago, but with some amount of explanation about how you might use this or interpret the data product as well. So as you move through here, this should give you some idea about how it is that you might utilize this in your planning process, and some guidance about what you're seeing in the tables below and in the visualizations. We provide that for each of these things. So example county, examples, guidance for example disaster as well, which does the same thing. It breaks out that disaster page. We'll have to take a look at the links. The link is broken on that, but can bring you to that same type of page. We'll get that fixed for you so that you can get there. So so all of this stuff is giving you a lot of different ways of looking at the data and organizing. And as I mentioned multiple times, those tables, most of the tables, if not all of them, have a download button that you can click on to export the data as a CSV. And each of those tables is grouped in some way, right? Whether it's grouped by hazard or grouped by county or something along those lines. And that can be extremely helpful in your planning effort. But if you're looking more for the raw data and you want to be able to download, we provide first filtered fusion events data. So this is the events data that you can search by your state or county or both. These will be additive filters. So once you select your state, you'll have a smaller number of counties to choose from, et cetera. And disaster number you could search by as well. And that will then drop this will reduce the number of items you could download here. right now, if you hit this download, you'd be downloading the entire data product.
Which is what? Scroll down. It says how many rows there are right now.
Yep. That is 1 million.
1.5 million.
1.5 million, but that's, yeah, right. Rows, yeah, 1.5 million rows. So if we want to filter this, it takes a second here, and then you could download this. This will be all of the events for New York State, as I just selected there on that. And then we could do, as I mentioned earlier, but it's an additive filter. So and the numbers in here are referencing the FIPS codes, right? And so you could export just for Cortland County, for instance, right? So that's one of the ways that we recommend downloading this data. So it provides you filtered downloads. Another way you could do it, if you're interested in the national data sets for download, we have the Fusion data full. That's again 1.5 million rows. We also have the Fusion County summaries, which provides the data summarized up at the county level. So you could export that as for any county. Well, it would be for all counties in New York State. But that would give you county totals. And any one of these, where if you click into one of these pages here, for instance, this brings me to our, the data overview. So this is showing us, tells a little bit about the data product. It gives you the column names and descriptions of those columns. So this is like the metadata here, data dictionary. For some of these, we don't have a description written. Some of these are calculated columns by our team, meaning that we do a little bit of additional custom work where we can add additional groupings and things like that, SQL query type groupings, which group the data in ways that show up on that front end. So some of the visualizations that I was showing earlier contain groupings and information that is not going to be in the data download itself. It's things that we did to organize. So like to be able to additively get to like dollars of declared disasters versus dollars of non-declared disasters. We've done some of those mappings and those show up in the tables that I was showing earlier. And some of these columns will not show up in the download.
Yeah. Eric, I think it's worth noting here, like just if you go back to the previous downloads page, the county event summary data is by county, by year, by hazard. So this data is in more or less exactly the same format that Sheldis data is in. So if you're used to using Sheldis data for your planning products to understand historical hazard loss, this data should, the metadata is a little bit different, but generally the shape of this data is exactly the same. And so this can be a direct drop-in replacement for Sheldis data in planning projects. And again, thanks to our partners at FEMA, this data we're making this data available for free to anybody to use at any time. So the other data set that we have available, the events data set, it's worth noting, right? Like the totals for the events data set and the Fusion County summaries sum up to be exactly the same. These are just two different representations of exactly the same data set. But the Fusion events data has a row for every single individual event, whereas the Fusion County summaries is a little bit simpler. It shows the hazard loss for each county, for each hazard type for each year. So.
Great, thank you. We also provide the FEMA disaster data sets that I mentioned earlier. So we've got the declaration summaries, the individual and household assistance, public assistance, NFIP, SBA disaster loans, and USDA crop loss data set. Each of these we've done a minimal amount of processing on, but I believe they're not exactly the same thing you download from the Open FEMA. I think there's a little bit of processing that we've done. I don't recall exactly what that is off the top of my head. But this, it gives you all these in one location. So if you're interested in coming in to download, you can come in and pull that together. So then I think that's most of the tour. We also do provide some resources. So we are still fleshing this out, but hoping that folks who want to do mitigation planning and are looking for the best best practices for data uh, can hopefully come in here and navigate around both through download of those products I shared today, or bounce out to some of the other locations that might be useful for planning. So including some of the third-party data products, as I mentioned, the National Risk Index, or if you're interested in any of these other data sets, we're trying to point people in the right direction there. So I think that covers it for what I'd hoped to present today. We will be following this up in the near future with a second presentation in which we would like to go through this a little bit more in detail with folks with more more touch points where we can try to show folks how this could be used in mitigation planning and take specific questions about the data product, and that's something that we'd like to do in sometime in maybe June here. But are there any specific questions that folks have today about the data product that they'd like to ask, or any thoughts or concerns?
Yeah, Eric, you got a couple in chat right now. Looks like Alex answered one of them, but we should just outline it for the group. Kevin had asked, will this data be maintained by Avail and or FEMA going forward? And Alex just responded that yes, it will be maintained as an annual data set with new updates available each September. And then you have a couple other questions. So is there a plan for this to be merged with the NRI, or will they remain separate? RAPT. Wrapped.
I'll answer that. So this data, so when we do the planning for New York State, like state hazard mitigation plan and local plans, we use both this data and the NRI data. They serve different purposes, and we think that both of them are very useful. This is really about historic hazard loss and only about historic hazard loss. You can definitely sort of nitpick maybe some of the sources going into this are not a perfect representation of everything lost ever. And that's an open and interesting and hard problem, but there's no modeled data in this data set at all. This is all, everything is a reported verified loss. So there's no modeling going on here. This is just really the best thing we know about the history of hazard loss. So that's the intention of this. Whereas the National Risk Index is designed to understand risk and future risk and risk based on historical hazards. But because hazard events are randomly distributed in weird ways, some places may have risk that's not actually represented by their loss history, for example, and the NRI tries to understand that. And so in the New York State plan, we use both of these data sets in a complementary way, right? Talking about history on one hand and risk on the other hand. And we use them together to analyze the hazard risks across the state. So these are they're going to be kept separate. They're not, and they're we think of them as complementary data sets which can be used together to understand risk and loss. So like that. I hope that answers the question. And then the other question is repetitive loss information captured here, and the answer to that is no. Depending on how you define repetitive loss, and I know there's some really technical definitions for repetitive loss, especially when you're talking about the National Flood Insurance Program, there's probably enough information in this data set to make some repetitive loss calculations if you wanted to do that work on top of it. But it is not in this data set. Like, we don't do those calculations. We don't make any claims about understanding repetitive loss in the data as is.
Great. So if there's no further questions, I just want to remind folks that we will be following up again in the near future we're going to be doing a second webinar to dive a little deeper into the data. And then we would, if there's any interest in continuing to follow this program and you were forwarded the invitation instead of being on the initial invitation blast, please put your email in to the chat. You could send it privately, or you could send it to the team, to the whole group here. Or if you're able to find the initial invite for me, you could send me an email directly. Happy to follow up with folks, to collect together a larger community of practice around this. And we're inviting, if anyone does start to use this data in their efforts, we'd love to hear more about how you're using it, and we're open to any feedback folks provide on it as well. So this is just an introduction to let you know it's here. Hopefully, most of the tools that are here allow you to use it independently, and there may not be any need for us to be much more involved in that, but we would like to hear how you're using it, and we're going to continue to try to provide information about how to use it and how we're using it and how we're thinking about it all over the next coming months. So again, thank you all for joining us today.
Eric, I think we have one more question I'll handle before we jump off here.
Yep.
And yeah, do really appreciate everybody being here, and also our partners at FEMA for enabling this work and making it so we can make this data available. But the question was, does the data set include variable for community losses beyond casualties and injuries, such as power outages and days of interruption to education and other jobs? So the answer to this is no. Realistically, we don't have a good way of understanding sort of economic losses like that, or secondary losses. What we do provide in the data set is losses in 3 categories. So that would be property losses, loss of human life or injury, and agricultural losses. So those are the 3 categories that we understand loss in. And then we do also talk about deaths and injuries. Some of the feeding data sets do have durations. And so there are a number of ways in this platform that you can see the duration of events when that's available. But that does not make it into the final data set. We only have sort of a single day start instance time for events in the Fusion data set. All right.
Great. So again, thank you all for joining us, and thanks again to FEMA Region 2 for all the guidance and support that you've given us in moving this product out to this point. And feel free again to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, and look forward to hearing from me again in the near future with more about this product and about mitigation planning efforts around it. So again, thank you all, and have a nice day.